Hello and welcome to the Unwelcome Podcast. I am so sorry. I am about 7 minutes late from when I said I was going to be on, but I had a bit of an emergency. Literally, my glasses broke 8 minutes before the stream started. So I did a quick tape job, and here I am to bring you some updates on the situation that I found out, at least through some research and talking to several people in Kansas about what is going on there, what the weather has been like, what other people are seeing on the ground in Kansas concerning this issue with 10,000 or more head of cattle dying between roughly the June 12th and June 13th or 14th. So let me, for just a recap, in yesterday's show, we went over the complete situation, that the story at this point, or the way that it's being framed, at least even by the Gateway Pundit, is that there was a massive amount of heat on between June 11th and June 13th and 14th. And because of that, an extraordinarily large group of cattle centered around the geographical center of Ulysses, Kansas, died. Okay. And yesterday we discussed some of the possible things that could have caused that. And we're going to explore a little bit more into the details of what the weather was like in Ulysses, Kansas during that portion. If it was hot enough, in fact, to kill that number of cattle at that point, and as well as other people's thoughts, including I've now talked to, I don't know, probably a dozen or more ranchers from all over the country, including in Kansas, who've attested to what the weather has been like in Kansas and what they believe is going on here based upon what they know in their experience with both the weather and those who have experience in ranching. And even I've even had a doctor weigh in, not a veterinarian, but a doctor. And then, my own personal insights, which if you're watching the show, you at least want to see in somewhat shape or form. So, but before I do all that, if you enjoy what I'm bringing you, if you enjoy or find what I'm doing here useful, please like, subscribe, share the video to support what I'm doing. I'm just getting this started, okay? And yes, Georgia, I corrected the pronunciation of Ulysses, so I am sorry about that. I said Ulysses or Ulysses, like Ulysses S. Grant. But let me get my spiel. I have to get my spiel. If you like what I'm doing, if you like my channel, if you like some of the things in the interviews I'm bringing you, please like, subscribe, share the video, so I can keep doing it. The channel's growing, and something I will also talk about is in a situation I had today with YouTube itself, concerning the live stream I put out yesterday. Some very strange happenings that I will go over in maybe not great detail, but I will give you what I can and what I can show you. There was some indication that there was at least a bug in the system that was causing yesterday's live stream, my first live stream, not to populate in the analytics the amount of actual views to the video that were happening. And there's some evidence to show that there has been some depression on my count in both comments, sub count, and the issue of views going back at least 2 or 3 weeks to my interview with Kelly Skye, which if you have not watched that video, you should. We go over the WISC model, the community schools model, and how the United States government, and via many different avenues, is wishing to use sex ed and everything down to block grants through the CDC and the surveys your kids are getting in schools to create a community that will take over the raising of your children. So you should check that out. it appeared that the stuff that was happening to my account started right after that video. So that means I think you should go watch it. And you should also watch the live stream yesterday to keep up with this. So I want to dive in here. We recapped what is going on in Kansas. Large number of cattle. The official story is that the heat killed all of these cattle. That is a possibility. I don't want to discount that. I'm not going to make any judgments. Okay. The only thing I want to do is ask questions. But from what I know, what alarmed me about this situation in the first place was that I've been around farms my whole life. I've been around them in Texas. I've been around them in Oklahoma. I've been around them in Missouri and Mississippi and very hot places. Okay. And I've never seen, except when there was a drought, this number of cattle dying all at the same time just from the heat index. Okay, just from heat. So we're going to go over the weather patterns for those days that they're saying that all this materialized. And we're going to dive into what the weather was like in Ulysses, because the case is being made that because the cows couldn't cool down, that they died. And that is just automatically suspect to me, just from a common sense standpoint, because I've been around farms my whole life and from the people I talk to. I mentioned yesterday in the podcast, in the live stream, that I had spoken to 2 ranchers, and both of them were very concerned. They had fear in their voice. And I said this yesterday. These are not men who normally fear anything. Okay. they don't fear anything. These are hard men who, do not wear their emotions on their sleeves. I also talked to and they said that they've never seen anything like this, even with extreme heat and drought, like say that happened near 2011, 2012, they didn't see anything like this. As long as you water your cattle, they're not going to die. You may have, a few that are sick, that are weak, and they might succumb to the heat, but it's not going to be 10,000 cattle that die because of this, unless they're just lacking water. And so the other option we explored was, did the ranchers themselves not water their cattle? Something I've had brought up that I have not gotten to explore, so I'm not going to dive into it until I get a chance to explore it, is there's a new farming technique being employed maybe that could have led, an ESG kind of environmentally safe way of farming that could have led to this kind of death in cows on a mass level. Okay, I have not explored that, so I'm not going to dive into that as if I know, but I will look into it. Okay. Yes. And just for you guys to know, this is the same topic, but not the same title. What I'm going into here is specifically the weather and what other people have said. Ranchers, I have a doctor. I just want to explore the viability of the heat itself going into being the cause of death here. And the first thing I want to look at, although the first thing I want to point out is that I'm not the only one that has concerns about this. Immediately, I'm going to recap a little bit. What happened yesterday when I first put this out, I was one of the first people on Twitter to put this out. And there was bots on Twitter about 4 or 5 hours later that all started sharing the same thing. And I'll show you that again. I'm just not going to dive into it now. And it was basically, don't blame Biden. All the same text, all the same story, all the same picture. It was a bot farm. And basically saying, you can't blame Biden for this. It's global warming. It's climate change. 104-degree heat, although it being hot, in the middle of June is not unheard of. And even for 2 or 3 days won't kill 10,000 cattle historically. That is what I'm getting from literally an overwhelming amount of ranchers and people sharing comments on my YouTube live stream from yesterday, they have said this is highly unlikely. That is the general consensus. I've gotten very few people in the know that say this is something that usually happens. Okay, so there was the narrative the narrative farm that came out from all the bots. And so I started taking pictures of it and posting it on Twitter literally 30 or 40 minutes after I started posting them. And really right after James Lindsay shared it, because it kind of jumped. All of those, I couldn't find them anymore. So there's something to say for that. That is not proof or disproof of anything. It is just what happened. But there are also people, official people, who have concerns about what it is that I'm seeing and and have the same concerns that I do. So I'm going to share this. This is from Senator Shane Jett in Oklahoma. I've worked with him, and he's a good guy. He's out of Shawnee. He's a state senator. And this is what he said about the situation. He says, this is neither random nor accidental. Who is responsible for the death of these cattle? Why is there no investigation of the systematic attack on our food supply and destruction of our food processing plants? Who has declared war on the American people? Wake up, America. Hashtag food shortage. Now, and I went over this in the live stream yesterday. This comes on the heels of 2 years worth of 97 separate incidents that are documented on food distribution plants. Okay. So that's part of what makes this concerning. If it were just this situation, they need to be looking at other diseases and things that could have caused the cows to have an adverse reaction. That needs to, if there's not, I've not heard of an autopsy being done yet. But there appears to be a series of occurrences on the nation's food supply via food processing plants and packing plants and, chicken plants and, formula plants that have been blamed on everything from, just random fires to lightning strikes. But there's 97 of them over the course of the last 2 years that have been documented. This is not something that is unknown. Okay, guys, it's not. And yes, there are a bunch of replies on my Twitter account that have people saying that this is not normal. Okay. And there's even a fact check. I might go into this. I haven't looked at it. Oh, this is for the food processing plant. Okay. Fact checks from Reuters. We might dig into that, even though I haven't looked at it. Why not? But I want to get to my main point here. So I'm going back to Shane Jett. This is a video of all of the cattle, just so everybody knows. And this is the tweet I put out yesterday showing the situation in Kansas. So where I want to dive into first is to get an idea of what the weather was like in Ulysses, Kansas from June 11th to June 14th. Okay. And I looked this up. All right. Now, I've had DMs coming at me from people I trust that live in Kansas that said, yes, it has been extraordinarily hot. But what it has also been is incredibly wet. This is not a dry heat. It's been very humid. Shout out to Cornflake Girl who lives in Kansas, has lived in Oklahoma. I think I'm saying your moniker right. I'm not going to look down at it because then I'm going to get off base. But you know what I'm talking about. Warrior in Kansas, who just shared with me right before I started that it has been extraordinarily hot, and we will see that here. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. Let me know if you can't see it. But in the article yesterday from the Postal Millennial, it narrowed down the days that it got very hot to June 11th, which is right here, Sunday, June 11th, okay, through the 14th, which is when this was reported. Okay, so on those days, it was 103 degrees on the 11th, 104 degrees, on the 12th, 113 degrees on the 13th, and 96 degrees on the day that this was reported. So this is obviously very hot. That doesn't mean that the heat index isn't higher. It could be 104 degrees, but it feels like 110, right? Same with cold, right? If you have a wind chill factor, you have a heat index that if you're out in the sun, like cows normally are, they don't have a lot of shelter. They're going to, and they're black cows. That also obviously makes a difference. They're fat cows. That makes a difference. Okay. But the sun beating down on them can make it feel hotter than the 104 degrees that it is. That is a justifiable claim that supports the theory that all of this was caused by the heat. But I want you to pay special attention to something here on this calendar that shows the heat index. These are the highs and the lows. We've went over the highs just now, 103, 104, 104, 96 on the day that this story came out. But look at the lows. That's what does not make sense here, because 104 degrees is as hot as it got, with, I would say, a guesstimation of 110 degree, 112 degree heat index. That's the heat of the day. So you're talking at, noon to 3. In the evenings, when the sun was down, it got down to, on the 11th, 65 degrees, on the 12th, 71 degrees, on the 13th, 71 degrees, and the 14th, 69 degrees. So, to be generous here, the cattle that they are saying died of heat stroke, basically, were only subjected to the highest heat index on the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th of June. Let's be liberal, okay? From 11 a.m. to 4 to 5 p.m. 6 hours, 7 hours. That's being liberal, okay? The heat, as it does, the temperatures would start dropping at least around 5 to 6 p.m., okay? And then it would get down to anywhere between 65 and 71 degrees after that, when the sun would go down. So the ranchers, I talked to a rancher, and they said, and this one was in Kansas, in Texas, and he said it regularly gets above 110 degrees where he's at in his cattle. They're not necessarily feed cattle, and feed cattle are more susceptible to this. He said these look like feed cattle, so that supports the hypothesis that it was the heat that caused this. But he said he's dealt with feed cattle before, okay? And feed cattle, just like any other cattle, if you keep them hydrated, water, you spray them, especially during the heat of the day, you may lose the weak ones if it gets really hot, but you're not going to lose 10,000 at once. I talked to another rancher. He was from Brazil. This is actually a comment. Okay. He said he was from Brazil and deals with much hotter temperatures with cattle all the time, and you will lose some, but never at that level. Now, these cattle are in Brazil, used to the heat, not necessarily from Kansas, but Kansas is not known for being an icy place. Kansas is in the dead center of the country, and I've lived in the dead center of the country literally my whole life. I lived in Missouri, which is just east of Kansas, at literally the same longitudinal plane, or is it whichever one is horizontal plane, okay? And it's gotten to 110 degrees in Missouri and did not have cattle die like this. But my main point of this in going through the weather is, yes, it did get very hot. The heat index could have got to 110, 112 degrees, but only for about 6 hours of the day. And then in the evenings, the cattle were not subjected to that kind of heat. They were actually subjected to very, very mild conditions for at least 9 to 10 of the 24 hours where it's dark. Okay? They were subjected from anywhere from 65 to 71 degree heat. So there wasn't sustained dry heat in the evening either. And Cornflake Girl on Twitter, she told me that it's literally been like walking through a swamp in Kansas is how much it's been raining. Now, if we go back to the video here just to see it, this particular place looks a little dry, and I'm just going to go off what we can see, okay? This looks dry, but look, you can see this is wet ground. It's not completely wet ground, but it's not dry. And you can actually see where there's mud, dark mud coming through where they've been driving. So it had been raining as well. It did not, according to, as far as I can gather from this at least, rain on those days, but it actually doesn't indicate it. I wonder if I can click on it. But you can see there's severe storms. Oh, it's in Wisconsin. So, but I have people that have told me it had been raining for much of the month before. So they wouldn't have been in a drought, and they wouldn't have been constantly subjected to this heat. So many of the ranchers have said that this is not possible, that it leads people to believe or to be concerned, just like Shane Jett was here, Senator Shane Jett from Oklahoma. This is not something that you can remove from the other things that have happened in terms of the food issues here in the United States. And I want to make this, and I put this out on Twitter. It was one of my last tweets before I came on, that really my main issue here is, because as you all know, my channel is devoted. I usually don't do things like this. And I'm really not doing this to get a bunch of attention. What I'm doing this is, and what I really want to move this toward in the conversation, is the fact that you have a stated goal from globalist leaders, whether you're talking about the WEF, you're talking about the ESG funded, when you talk about environmental social governance, to limit the amount of meat that people are eating, specifically red meat, because of the methane being produced by the cows. And I actually had this on one of the comments on YouTube. Go check out those comments, because I think you'd find them interesting. But I had this from one of the comments on YouTube, and where they basically said this was a blessing to have this happen, because it would limit the climate change issue. It would help save the earth. And my response to that was, you're just not rooted in any type of reality. If that's your take on this, but that underscores what I really want to talk about or bring this towards, which is the ESG funded system anyway. This system is this corporate mandate that's being laid down through everything from block grants and government to the kinds of loans and the interest rates you get on loans for small and big businesses, is mandating a code of conduct that reinforces that kind of lunacy. That who cares about the people that this could ruin? If you have 10,000 of your cattle die, right? Who cares about them? At least we're going to do, one little click toward saving the planet. And that's the environmental end of this that just doesn't make any sense at all. It makes no sense. And this gets mixed up in the social governance part of this, which is what I talk about mostly in my Unwokeable channel, which is this gets married with a virtue system of social justice. And that's why you hear constantly about climate justice. Climate justice. It's Marxism, just like we've been preaching, James Lindsay and I, and countless others for 2 years now. This is Marxism. This is just a way to trick people into think they're being virtuous, to sign on to the breakdown of the country, to the breakdown of our systems, because you have to break down the systems to create utopia. You have, I mean, it's all there, okay? So we need to understand how this connects and why I'm worried about it and why I'm covering it on this channel when normally I wouldn't talk about these kinds of things. Because as I mentioned yesterday, there is the hypothesis, the concern that this could be a narrative push, a manufactured incident to create, because what was in all of those, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to find them. What was in all of those issues, okay, or all of those tweets where the people were the bots that it came out 3 or 4 times, or it was literally dozens of them that were saying the exact same thing. You've seen it on Twitter before if you've been there, okay? Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once. But what these mentioned specifically was the issue of not eating meat. Okay? They were saying that people who think that the government doesn't want you to eat meat are crazy. But you can look this stuff up. Just look at any of the WEF videos. I mentioned yesterday that we were playing the game of life with my nephew, and not my nephew, my son, with my, and my nephew. And one of the cards was bugs are the protein of the future. This is one of these, cards you get in the game, and because bugs are the protein of the future, you get $30,000, and it's literally rewarding it in the game to push this narrative. And that's concerning because it shows that this is a narrative push, that they don't want the big cattle, the big land, and the ranchers to contribute to climate change, and they don't want you to eat meat to do it, to facilitate it. I'm not going to spend any more time looking for it. I should have brought it up before. But go into my Twitter account. It's ACS against CRT, on Twitter, and you'll find them. They're there. And, here they are. Of course, I find them right when I stop looking for them. Let me share this for you, because I think it's just important to see. You got it right here. Very stable geniuses are blaming 10,000 cattle heat index on President Biden, who apparently poisoned them to force us to eat fake toxic meat. This is a preemptive narrative. The information that they don't want you to eat regular meat is out there, that they want to limit that in order to stop the spread of greenhouse gases through methane, through any number of things. That's out there. Biden has talked about it. It's environmental push. The WEF has said, has pushed the narrative, you should try to eat bugs as protein. These are things that sound insane, but are happening. So what this is a preemptive narrative, that if you pejorativize this statement and say, oh, well, you're some kind of crazy person for saying it, then anybody who comes across it and comes across this tweet first is going to take the first thing that they know, or the first thing that they hear as gospel, especially if it reinforces their already confirmed bias, and they're going to parrot that, and anyone who says any different is going to be crazy from then on out. That is literally the mass psychosis, part of the mass psychosis that's been going on in the country. People listen to the first thing they hear, it confirms what they want, and they refuse to hear any dissent. It is Soviet-like. Yes, it is Soviet-like. It's propaganda, because you can find this stuff. And Bill Gates is whether anybody wants to admit it or not, is pushing synthetic meat as a substitute for meat. And I want to keep in mind, if you ever watch the show Utopia that they canceled after 2020 on Amazon, go watch that, because it's just too, you can see why they canceled it. Okay. It's on Amazon. There's a British version of it, but go and watch Utopia on Amazon. Has Rainn Wilson in it. It's literally about a guy creating synthetic meat. That is not reality, though, yet. Okay, I'm not saying it will be. But if we don't ask the questions, the more likely it is that that kind of thing is going to happen, or could happen. Just ask questions. That's all I'm doing here. But these are just narratives that are designed to pejorativize what might actually be happening, so you will not ask the questions before you'll be de-incentivized to ask the right questions. If the same thing happened with the lab leak theory. And now we all know that that is the most probable case that would happen. And I know I'm repeating myself from yesterday, but I want to get back to this issue of the weather, okay? Because the issue of the weather and the heat, I think, is the main point. Because when they're making a claim, okay, they've made a claim. I'm not saying it's completely incorrect. What I'm saying is that we have to start with their claim and work from, try to falsify it. And where I'm falsifying it here is that, yes, you did have, it was cloudy during these times. That's what I've been told. It wasn't just complete unstoppable sun. There was humidity, making it harder to breathe, making it harder to walk. You could have some cows get stuck. They could have died that way. But not 10,000 of them. But you did not have the sustained beating down of dry heat, drying out these cows and killing them because they died. And you cannot tell me that these ranchers who put all their livelihoods into these cattle did not water them. And then I have at least 18. I counted right before I came up. Excuse me. At least 18 ranchers that have either reached out to me separately, I've talked to them, or they've commented that say that this is absolutely something they've never seen in these kind of conditions. It was hot. If it would have been dry, they would have understood, but even that would have been hard for them to swallow. So, but the main issue for me here is the temperature, because that is what they are claiming killed the cows, or at least what the Gateway Pundit said that the officials were saying, and what the farmers had indicated, without a real quote for it, that it was the heat. Okay, 5 to 6 hours tops of the top heat index. A bottom out temperature of 69 to 71 degrees, 65 to 71 degrees over the course of those days. On the day that they reported that these died, because this was reported on the 15th, they actually narrow it down to the 13th and 14th. On the 14th, it was 96 degrees was the high. 69 degrees was the low. So they were not susceptible to this for a sustained period of time. Especially, I just don't buy that they didn't have water. So I'd like to know. Okay, so I'm seeing that NBC said the cooling winds disappeared. Giorgio, that the cooling winds disappeared. Okay. We're asking, did the cattle die from the farms owned by Bill Gates? I have no idea who owned the farms yet. If you've seen that, let me know. But we must not, I think because of the temperature, just the simple verifiable fact that although the temperatures were high, they got very mild in the nighttime and in the evening. And cows live outside, okay? Cows live outside. I think it would have taken much more for that to have been the case, to kill that number of cows. And going back to what Senator Jett said, he believes, based upon what he's seen, he represents rural Oklahoma, and I don't know if there's been any out there specific of targeting plants or anything like that, okay? But it could be, he's concerned about it, and he's saying it publicly, okay? And I'm not gonna lie, I've had some issues with Senator Jett, but I think he does his best to be an honorable person, and he's not somebody that just, he will downplay things before he upplays them, if that makes sense. He's not going to sensationalize something. In my experience, and I've worked with him extensively, I've worked with him privately. He's somebody who downplays things, not somebody who upplays them or makes them worse. But so that statement that he made, okay, should give everybody as a public official some pause. I want to show you this. See if I can make it larger for you to see it. This is Nestle. This is just a list of some of the food issues that have happened since 2021 that have been documented. I believe there are 97 of them. I mean, you got 200,000 turkeys destroyed. I didn't pull this. Okay, this is from somebody who posted this, and I should have. Take this with a grain of salt. Go out and look for your own stuff, and I will find the actual. Article posted by the Post Millennial, or it was the Gateway Pundit. But I looked at it for a minute. This looks very similar, and I know that some of these things are real, but in terms of the numbers. But this is saying that there are 208,000, basically 209,000 turkeys destroyed in Minnesota on April 9th. But it has that listed twice. Yeah, some of these are a little suspect. I'm just going to tell you. There 1 million chickens destroyed on April 29th. But the list that I did see, okay, I'm just going to get out of this because I'm not sure about it. If you are the one who posted this on my account and you happen to be watching, give me your source on this. But there are, I'm gonna find the actual. I'm gonna find the actual thing from the Gateway Pundit. Get out of there. I'm not. Guys, I tell you, if I get something wrong, I'm gonna tell you. Okay. And if you see that I'm wrong about something, please tell me. Seriously. Yes, and I've seen the list of incidents like this, but I want to see if I can get to that Gateway Pundit article real quick. Let me just switch over here. And so I can pull the list that they cite, okay? Because it is, I believe, a reputable source, okay? And so we can just look at some of these actual incidents. And because all I want to do is find out what this is. And what I don't want to see happen again is for a viable line of thought and questioning to be deemed unmentionable, so that they get us to avoid what actually happened until it doesn't matter, nobody cares anymore. That's part of what has happened here over and over again. The truth is only useful if you use it when it's useful. That's one main thing here. The truth is only useful if you use it in the time that it needs to be used. Regardless of what you think about the election, and I'm not going to say one way or the other, but if there was any situation that deemed for that to have been gone the other way, there was a rapidly closing window of opportunity in which that information could be found and used. Once that window of opportunity was passed, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it constitutionally. So that's how you get lies past people, and why you hear the truth about, for example, Hunter Biden's laptop. That was put out October 28th of 2020, right before the election, and they banned it. And just recently we were forced to admit that it was real, but it doesn't matter. They don't care because they got their desired goal. The truth only mattered when it was useful. Okay? It only mattered when it was useful. I'm going to go in. This is the story I went over yesterday. I'm going to find that list of 97 incidents. Okay, so this is in the Gateway Pundit. I'll move this around a little bit. Sorry. Get this out of the way. Of the incidents that have happened, and this is going back 2021. Yes, the Gateway Pundit. Okay. Right? Chickens destroyed. I mean, it's giving a lot of the same numbers of the list that we saw. Walmart warehouse distribution destroyed. 17th. You have 5 million chickens destroyed in an egg farm in Buena Vista, Iowa on the 17th. And also in Kent, Delaware. This is suspect. And so when you take all of these things, and I know I've seen some of these because I have people that live close talk to me about them, that I trust, that I know. Up in Wisconsin, and here on the 14th, 10,000 head of cattle. It's the last one listed. And the Kansas heat wave. This is new. And I will say this: the Post Millennial is saying that it was the heat wave. I mean, why do I keep calling the Gateway Pundit? And they're not known for their, adherence to the narrative. But I've not seen anything that proves that, and the weather does not prove it for me. So if you have information about this that I'm not seeing, please share it. Please share it. Yeah, I tried to get Timcast to cover it. I tried to get his attention. I am incredibly small. We have a mutual friend or two that, we're literally one in terms of the people we know and actually talk to on a daily basis. But I want Timcast to cover this. I would actually like to go on Timcast and talk about it because I have an inside track on a lot of these. I've talked to a lot of the farmers. I've talked to a lot of the ranchers. Personally, they do not think that this is viable. So if anybody you all know, Ian or Tim or any of the rest of them, I got family in West Virginia. I got to come over there. And I would love to come on his show. And yes, I'm shamelessly plugging myself, but he should talk about it because people need to know about it. But do y'all have any questions about anything I might have seen? I wanted to show you all some of the comments that had come up on my YouTube channel. So let me just get to that real quick. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to cover. So the issue with my YouTube channel. Yes. Was I showing you that list? No? Okay, I didn't hit the right button. The issues with my YouTube channel that were ironed out by YouTube. I want to show you what happened with that because it was very curious. So after I did my live stream yesterday, I did not expect any big response. A few of you were online and watching and all of that. But it kind of blew up just for my little channel. I mean, nothing huge, a few thousand views. But the issue that struck me as worrisome was the discrepancy between what I was seeing on one portion of the views, which was showing me that I was getting 300 or 400 an hour, or every 30 minutes at a certain point, different views. And what has been happening with my YouTube channel since I interviewed Kelly Sky. Okay. This is interesting. I think it's interesting, but I think it's something that we should highlight, because if they're doing this to small accounts like mine, it doesn't make any sense. So I got this. This is from Beat It in DC. It's not normal either. It says that I have 0 comments, but I count 17, including the reply. At this point that she sent this, I had 55 comments on that video, on that live stream. Here's the other part of it. This is what I was seeing. There was one indication, and it's over here on the right, that the video had, at this point, 1,200 views. But this is what it was giving me. 0 views, 0 watch time, 0 subscribers coming off of it. I don't know. To YouTube's credit, I mentioned it to them, and they fixed the problem, at least from the point that I had mentioned it. But I lost all of the analytics, all the data, all the boost that would have happened through this whatever conduit of the channel in the basically the 12 hours that had preceded it. So I requested that they boost my content in during peak hours to make up for it, because I don't think that's too much to ask. Because as we all know, this YouTube thing is a snowball. If you're trying to get people's attention and you lose, I mean, it's one of my bigger videos. I did not expect it to perform like it did. Probably because I was early. Nobody else was talking about this. But that's what happened. They fixed the problem, and my computer is being a little strange too. It's it says I'm running out of application memory, which is, I've never seen that before. So I'm not going to stay on too much longer, because I've said everything I'm going to say. I'm not going to sit here and babble at you. Okay. I'm not going to do 2-hour live streams just because I want to sit here and talk. And I'm not going to waste people's time. The main issue, and I'm just going to recap what I said. The main issue for me, the main question I have right now, is the low and the high heat for the number of hours that this would have had to have happened to kill all of these cattle. It got down to 65 and at nighttime, and the lows would be 71, between 65 and 71 for 3 days, with the high being beyond that. Oh, and I appear to have been kicked off. Hey, I'm back. If you're here, can you see me? Let me know if you can see me. I don't know what just happened. I literally, everything froze up, and I've never had my computer do that before. Whatever. Okay. I don't know if I could set up all that again. But the main point was that it wasn't hot enough. It wasn't hot enough. Go and check out the weather data for yourself, especially in the evenings. They would have gotten they would have gotten reprieve. Yes, I just got kicked off. I don't know why. I'm so tired of that crap. Just let me say this, okay? Don't stop asking questions. Don't let anybody call you crazy for asking questions. But also, if you get proved wrong, admit you're wrong. If you have a hypothesis and it gets proven wrong, move on. It's not always the government or some evil conspiracy, but it's not always not that either. Okay? That's the point. Just use your brain. Use some empirical data, something you can actually wrap your mind around. Being curious is good. That's right. Georgia. George. I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry. I have committed a microaggression against you, and I will flog myself appropriately. But yes, being curious is good. Is it Giorgio? Just tell me if I'm right. Am I making it harder than it should be? Just ask questions. And I want an answer about the low temperatures. That's literally where I'm at. I'm going to start as the simplest place. We're going to move out. Giorgio. My fake name online. Got it. Okay. Well, at least I wouldn't offend you personally by getting your fake name wrong. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching, Giorgio, Conservative Z, others who've watched, mostly you guys who are commenting. I appreciate it. And thanks for sharing my channel. I'm not very smooth. Things don't look great. I'm working on that. I can actually give a good speech and good presentations. I was a teacher for a long time, and I'm working on that, and it will get better. But like and share my stuff, subscribe, get your friends to do it, have them listen. Only if they like it, though. I don't want anybody's charity. I want to be valuable. You're going to see some more. I'm going to be doing an interview here in the next couple of days with a guy you may all know. I'm not going to say it now because it hasn't happened yet, and we've said it a couple of times, and it's just the schedules have knocked it out. But you will know him. He's been on some big things, so I'll be coming up here in the next few days. And I might even have James back on here soon to go over a video that I want his reaction to, and he said he'd be willing to do it. It's just, man, that guy, nobody works harder than James Lindsay. I'll tell you right that. I'll tell you, nobody works harder than him. He's everywhere all the time, doing really just the grunt work of this whole movement. So just stay tuned, like and subscribe. Let me know if you all have any questions. Put some stuff in the chat. Yes, James Lindsay is the best. Put some stuff in the chat if you have questions. If you have other sources that you'd like me to check out, and other just any questions that you have. If I'm looking for video, I'm going to try to get video of some of these ranchers, or at least maybe a few to come on to talk about the issue. If you have any ranchers, if you have any farmers that have worked with cattle that could give us some insight, let me know. I'd like to interview them and just talk to them about what they think, especially if they've. I want people who have worked in the industry. So let me know, and I think I've got a couple on deck that I might do a live cast with in the next couple days. Just to give, because again, I'm not a rancher, but literally no one who is a rancher has told me this is normal. Yes, whoever owns the ranch needs to be found. We need to know who owns the ranch. And there needs to be some kind of autopsy done on not just one or two of the cattle. A representative sample. There are 10,000, let's do 100. So spread that word. We can't let these things just fly by because people are going to call us nuts for looking into them. I don't care. I've been called crazy. I don't care. I'm called crazy usually until people admit that I'm right. And I'm not right all the time. I just want to point that out. But on several major issues, I've been right. Because it's not hard just to ask simple questions. So, all right, guys, thank you. I'm going to go eat dinner. You all have a good night. Like, subscribe, and comment. Stay unwokeable and ask questions. Appreciate it, guys.